You're listening to the Reds Podcast.
This is episode number 106. Jeff Sanders is my co-host. We're talking about boosting productivity, how to form lifelong healthy habits, bounce out of bed with a smile, and how to dominate your day before breakfast. That's coming up on this episode of Red Podcast.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
Jeff Sanders is in the studio with me today. Jeff, this is the first co-host that I've had that's not Laurel, so congratulations.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
You're the first guy. Jeff is the host of 5 a.m. Miracle Podcast. He's going to show you how to boost productivity, form lifelong healthy habits, and bounce out of bed with a smile. Shows you how to dominate your day before breakfast. JeffSanders.com is his website. Let's get into your philosophy, Jeff. What is the 5 a.m. miracle philosophy? Are there really miracles at 5 a.m.?
I think the answer to that is an obvious yes, which is the miracle of 5 a.m. is that you are intentional about your day, that you wake up bright and early with a plan. That's really the point. The real miracle is that you know what you want to do with your day, and you wake up and you have a plan, you follow that plan, you get more done than the average person would ever do before breakfast.
What's the average person doing? What's his day look like?
The average person wakes out of bed at the last minute, stressed out, chugging coffee, running to work late. That's pretty average. Actually, that's the typical scenario. To be above average, to be unique or different, you're going to wake up a little bit earlier than the average person because you're going to need that time to do the things that are going to make the rest of your day a lot better.
5 a.m. sounds awfully scary, though. Does it have to be that early? Why 5 a.m.?
I chose 5 a.m. a little arbitrarily a few years ago because I thought that that was the best time to give me enough time before I hit the office that day to squeeze in a workout. That was my real intention in the beginning. For the average person, if you want to work out before work, 5 a.m. is normally a pretty good time. If you have to be at work, let's say at 9 a.m. to hit the office, obviously that's arbitrary. You could do 4 a.m., you could do 8 a.m., whatever allows you to get up early enough to do what you want to do before your workday begins, that's the goal there.
I'm a guy who works out daily. That's absolutely true. If you go to the gym early in the morning, 6 a.m., all the rich guys are there.
That's right.
Super nice cars in the parking lot, nice suits they're wearing after they've showered up. So it's a great networking tip, actually. Just get a gym membership and wake up early. If you do nothing else, you're going to be better off than you are right now.
Oh, totally. I think that's very true that people who are the most successful are the ones who wake up early because they know that their time matters. They value time so much that they know that if they go to bed early and they wake up early with a plan, their day is going to go exactly as they planned. And that's a rare thing for people to be able to say that my day was what I wanted it to be. And that's the real intention behind the 5 a.m. miracle is that you're getting out of your time what you expected. So that's what you go into that with, that same mentality of how can I make today the absolute best it could possibly be? And for me, that begins with the idea of dominating your day before breakfast because those morning hours are when you're most energized, you're most alert, and you're really excited about your day.
There's a saying called sharpening the sword, planning things out, getting ready to cut something before you actually have to cut it. Do you plan your day out ahead of time, or is that the first thing that you do during the day?
I actually plan twice. So I'll plan before the day begins, which is the night before. So around 8 p.m., I tend to plan the next day and ask myself, what are the goals for tomorrow? How do I need to prepare for that? And then the next morning when I wake up, usually it's around 5:30, I look at that again and ask myself, is this really the best plan for the day? And I make those changes if I need to make sure my day is going to flow in the best way it possibly can.
I've got something really similar. I love a program on my computer. It's called Things. It's a Macintosh program. There may be a PC version of it. And it'll allow me to put in something on my to-do list via my iPhone. Goes straight to my desktop. The day before I want to do it, I can organize it. Got a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something I just started doing. Laurel's got me on this. Organize the day. And I find working from the list allows me to get so much more done. Do you work from a list?
I do. I actually use a program called Noseby, which is both on the Mac and the PC and on the iPhone and iPad and all over the place, which is really helpful if you have multiple devices. But the real power behind using a system like what Noseby offers or any other task management system is that you can organize your day mostly on a list format as opposed to a calendar format. So you can see here's the order of events for today, and here's, you can prioritize it. Put the first things first and the things that are less important down at the bottom of the list, with the idea that you can really just look at a small, simple set of things of the day and say, this is what I'm doing today, and commit to those. And really just check off the list, just 1, 2, 3, and move through your day in that real proactive manner.
First things first, Second things never. Have you heard that?
It's a good phrase, yeah.
How do you know what to do first?
It's a really subjective answer usually. For me personally, to decide what matters, it depends on the big picture, the long-term goals. So what am I really trying to achieve for the year? What am I trying to achieve for my life mission? And then I backtrack from there. So it's kind of Stephen Covey's method of begin with the end in mind. That's what I'm doing, especially with the annual goal setting, every January 1st. It's like, what are you going to do this year? It's that same mentality, but every single day you're asking yourself, what's the long-term plan? How does that backwards track to where I am today so that I can look at my daily task list and say, well, today it says I should go to the gym. Well, why today? Because I know that I'm training for a marathon. Marathon's not for another year, but I know that today's training and today's trip to the gym or today's run at the park, that has value because it's adding to my longer-term goals. And so if I backtrack in a really intelligent way, I can look at my today's list and say, today is meaningful because it's adding to my longer-term goals. So to decide what those things are individually, that's up to you to decide how to plan that. But if you have the mentality of every task matters and I'm only going to plan things that are adding to my goals, you can be more subjective. You can filter your own list yourself without feeling like, I don't know what to do. It can be very easily determined if you know where you're headed. And that's the trick there.
I've heard it described as having your why, knowing why you want something. But I love it that for a marathon, for example, you have a deadline. Right now I'm working on a book using a program called Scrivener. And I love this because I said, all right, I want 50,000 words. I gave it the date and it breaks it down every day what I need to write. But you can do that with any goal.
The best kinds of goals are the goals that you can break down real methodically and say to yourself, this is a measurable goal. It's a real specific goal. And because it's so specific, I can tangibly say, here are the pieces I have to accomplish, and here's how those pieces can be broken down into a weekly goal, a daily goal. Right now, I'm working on 2 different books that I'm reading, and so the goal every day is to read 10 pages per book. And that's it. It's very simple. It's very small, but over the course of 20 days, I can read 200 pages per book. So that adds up. Over the course of a year, I can read 24 books that way. When the average person reads like 1 or 2 books a whole year, I could read 24 books a year by doing very small pieces at a time. And that's the real power of goal setting. It's the real power of list management and using a task manager is that things are in really tiny pieces because tiny things are very easy to do. And that's the point. You want them to be easy. If they're not scary, you're unlikely to skip them. So that's the real goal there.
I read a book over the weekend. It's called Many Habits. Have you read it?
I've not.
Many Habits is basically that philosophy. He says, just do it for 15 minutes. Get started, form the habit, and sometimes you're going to continue on instead of 15, maybe do 30, maybe do an hour, but at least you're doing something. And I certainly saw that with my career as a musician. That's how you learn how to play guitar. It's those small incremental improvements that lead to something over time. Weight loss would be the same way, any kind of fitness goal, but also business. We don't think about this because here's a music business saying we had. Every overnight sensation takes 7 years. You don't see them coming up, though. You just hear them on American Idol. You just see them on MTV. It takes a lot of work to get to that level, though.
That's the real magic behind success, is that it's not magical, it's just methodical. And that's what you want to do, the focus on those tiny little steps. I mean, and the marathon's a great idea. Same idea there is that if you have this measurable goal, and you can do it in small pieces, you get success slower at first because you think you're taking small steps, but the average person does nothing and they'll try and do a whole lot all at once and they hurry up real fast. I mean, I trained for a marathon a few years ago and I didn't work out all week, and on Saturdays I would try and run 20 miles. And of course, it was awful. I was not ready for it. It would kill my body. I would think I was doing a great job, but really all I was doing was killing myself. It wasn't productive. It wasn't successful. It was really stressful. And that process is the opposite of what you want to do. So that's why I've reverse engineered my whole life now, so where everything is in tiny steps, everything is a small habit. Just 2 weeks ago, I began meditation. I'm terrible at meditating, but my only goal is 5 minutes a day. And that I can squeeze in. That's a doable goal. And I can say in the last 2 weeks, I've gotten better. And it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It's just that little bitty piece right there.
I've got a meditation practice that I've done every morning for 15 years, maybe. When I started, I said, just do it for 2 minutes. And then you increase. People think they're just going to sit there and be able to focus on one thing, focus on the breath, whatever. It's extremely painful. Everything is like that, though. Running, you can't just get up and run a mile if you have been on the couch since high school. Just doesn't happen.
Right, exactly. I wish it was that way, where you could just say, well, I'm just going to go do this big thing all at once. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And I think that if you can apply the mentality, especially to your business, I mean, there's plenty of long-term business goals that, we see the people who are the most successful, who have achieved these great things. those things only occurred because that person was able to, over a long period of time, make those small incremental changes and adapt over time to lead up to those big things in the future.
So go to your website, jeffsanders.com. It says dominate your day before breakfast, and talking about meditation got me thinking about morning routines. Curious to know, if I were to model you, let's talk about your morning routine, because I know you've got one.
I love this talk here. Routines are awesome because that's what sets the stage for your day. So for me, that includes a 5 a.m. wake-up call. I have 2 alarms that I use. The first one's next to my bed, and the second one's across the room out in the hall. And I do that to force myself to say I have to physically get out of bed to turn off that alarm. It's a backup. It's a boundary for me to make sure that I am accountable to my own goals. Even though I've been doing this for a long time, I want to make sure that I am successful. So that's where everything begins. 2 alarms, wake up, get out of bed. I feed my dog. I take him on a walk. While walking my dog, I'm drinking a liter of water. Because for me, the water is the first thing I want in my body. It's really clarifying. It hydrates your body. It's the first thing your body really wants is water.
Okay, let me stop you there, because we're talking about incremental gains. Did you start with a liter of water?
I did not. Water was one of those things that I had to build up to it, because your stomach really won't be very happy with a full liter of any liquid all at once at first. So I started with, I think it was probably a half liter, and then I went to like 3/4 of a liter, and then a full liter. But even the full liter that I'm drinking now I don't chug that. I'm still slowly drinking that over the course of maybe a half hour. So that's the real goal there, is to get the liquid in, but don't just chug it all at once.
So you've gotten up thanks to 2 alarms, walking the dog, drinking your water. What's next?
After that, I have my morning espresso. I love my caffeine. I try not to have caffeine later in the day if I can help it. So I have my double espresso for a little kick in the morning. And then I move to my smoothie. So this is, in the morning for me, everything is focused on energy and lots of great nutrition. And so if you have the water plus the espresso plus my morning fruit smoothie, I end up with what is a lot of liquid and a lot of sugar and a lot of energy, which is a great foundation to lead into my morning workout, which comes next.
Okay, before we get to that, though, I got to stop you here. You've got 2 alarms. You've got double espresso. You've got a sugar-filled smoothie. I've got to wonder, are you getting enough sleep? Let's talk about sharpening the sword. You get 8 hours of sleep a night?
I average probably 7.5 hours a night.
Okay, so that's quite a bit. But you're just doing so much. You're just burning through this. You've got to have this to get through, I guess, right?
This is a morning routine. This is not an evening thing. So I'm not chugging espresso at 10 o'clock at night. This is all happening at 5 to 6 a.m. By the time the evening rolls around, I am tired enough to fall asleep. But the morning hours for me are extremely focused on energy production. I need all of that to lay the foundation for my workday so I can be mentally sharp and physically ready for that.
After you've had your sugar, your caffeine, your double alarm, and your walk and your water, you work out.
Yes.
That's a daily thing?
That's about 5 days a week.
What I've found from working out is I'm so mentally alert afterwards. In fact, where I really notice it, if I don't work out, like this morning, for example, up 7 a.m., went and did yoga for 90 minutes. If I don't do that, I'm nowhere near as effective. And I just kind of mope around, and it's hard for me to keep that focus.
Yeah, I read a book recently called Spark, and it's all about how the exercise that you do every day is actually the best thing to do for your brain, not your body. And the science behind it points to the fact that when you work out, you're actually building brain cells and forming connections you wouldn't otherwise have, which is why one of the best things in the book the author recommends is that you work out right before your hardest mental task of the day, which is a really fascinating idea to think that not only in the morning do I have probably my most energy and most mental alertness, but then if I schedule a workout and then right after that have, let's say, a challenging work task, I'm going to be the most ready I could possibly be for that. So whether it's a podcast episode I want to record, a meeting I'm going to have, if I want to be sharp, then I know I need to work out before that.
Well, let's take it back to the beginning of this episode. We talked about the rich guys working out at the gym in the AM. They must know something.
They've got to.
And that's why I'm asking you, because I love to model successful people. You hadn't done any work, though. You've had your double espresso. You've had your walk, your water. That takes a lot of time. And I think that scares people that it does take so much time. They just want to get back to work. But you're talking about being more efficient. You can get 8 hours of work done in maybe 4 hours.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the real goal here is to, like I said, lay the foundation. And yes, it takes probably 3 or 4 hours for my full routine to go through every morning to have time for all of the smoothie creation and the running and the showering and preparing for the day. But if you don't have that, then if you try to rush into your workday like the average person, you wake up and you chug the coffee and you get in the car and you feel behind schedule, then you end up with that same stress and tension follows into your workday, as opposed to having what I have now, which is a slower pace. It's calmer. It's very methodical, very intentional. so that when the day begins, I am ready for it. I'm on fire.